You know, you know that feeling when you're standing on the edge of a high dive for the very first time?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely terrifying.
Right. You're looking down at the water and your toes are sort of, curled over the rough edge of the board. And you tell yourself something like, I'm just observing the wind currents.
Or I'm waiting for the water to settle.
Exactly. I'm just calculating the optimal trajectory of my jump based on the surface tension of the pool or whatever. You spin this incredibly logical narrative in your head.
Yeah, you really do.
But let's be honest, you are just stalling. I mean, the idea of actually jumping is so terrifying that you disguise your paralysis as preparation.
And that preparation, it becomes a very comfortable place to hide, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because it feels highly productive to stand there analyzing the water, even though you aren't actually moving an inch toward your goal.
So true. Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at the psychology of acquiring new skills, and we're targeting that specific, incredibly universal trap, the trap of waiting to be ready.
Which we all do, in almost everything.
We all do it. And our source material today is an excerpt from an Easy English podcast story. It's titled, The Genesis of Fluency, Beyond the Wait.
It's a great piece.
It really is. It follows a language learner, but honestly, looking closely at the mechanics here, it's basically a masterclass in breaking out of our own heads.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it tackles how we block our progress
Yeah.
in literally anything, like learning to code or launching a business or, trying to write a novel.
Because we often assume that if we just consume enough information, if we read enough books, the ability to act will just naturally manifest.
Like it'll magically appear.
Exactly. But this story forces us to look at the vast difference between the passive absorption of data and the active functional application of that knowledge.
So let's meet the protagonist of the source text. Her name's Nadia. And Nadia is, well, she's the ultimate passive learner.
She really is the poster child for it.
Right. The text lays out her routine. She studies grammar rules diligently. She watches educational videos. She listens to language podcasts.
All good things on paper.
On paper, yeah. And she actually understands a massive amount of the English she consumes. But when it is actually time to speak, she just stays silent.
She freezes up.
Completely. Yeah. Her mind goes blank, she gets nervous, and she tells herself, I need more vocabulary, or I will speak later, when I'm ready. And days turn into months, and nothing changes.
Okay, let's unpack this because we see this play out neurologically in almost any learning environment.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, when Nadia listens to podcasts or reads grammar books, she is heavily engaging Wernicke's area.
Wait, Wernicke's area?
Yeah, Wernicke's area. It's the region of the brain that's primarily responsible for language comprehension.
Okay, got it.
So it's passive decoding, you're just taking information in. But the actual act of speaking requires entirely different neural machinery.
It's a different part of the brain entirely.
Completely different. It requires Broca's area, which coordinates all the complex cognitive and physical motor skills needed to actually formulate a thought. Yeah, you have to select the vocabulary under pressure and then physically produce the sounds using your vocal cords, your breath, your tongue.
So she is essentially doing bicep curls at the gym and wondering why her legs aren't getting stronger.
That is a perfect way to put it. Yeah. She is building neural pathways for recognition, not generation.
This is like reading 100 books on the exact physics of riding a bicycle.
Oh, I love this analogy.
Right. You can sit on your couch and study the gyroscopic forces of the wheels. You can learn the mechanics of the pedals, the balance required to stay upright.
You can become a theoretical bicycle expert.
Exactly. But then you refuse to actually sit on the physical bike because you are terrified of wobbling.
And wobbling is the only way you learn to ride.
Exactly. I've done this exact same thing. I mean, I once spent, and this is embarrassing, I spent 3 weeks researching and selecting the perfect font for a new blog.
Oh, no. 3 weeks.
3 weeks. I was trying to get the aesthetic completely ready, but I didn't write a single actual article.
Well, what's fascinating here is the danger of that font selection phase, or in Nadia's case, the grammar books.
That's the danger, just wasting time.
Worse, it's the dopamine hit it provides.
All because it feels like you're working.
Exactly. It tricks your brain into feeling a deep sense of accomplishment without any of the actual vulnerability of doing the real work.
That is so true. It feels so productive.
But Nadia isn't lacking baseline knowledge. She's trapped in this deeply ingrained illusion that confidence is a prerequisite for action.
She thinks she has to feel brave before she can open her mouth.
Right. She is confusing the absence of anxiety with the presence of readiness.
That's a huge point. To anyone listening to us right now, I want you to do a quick audit of your own life. Think about your own Nadia moments.
We all have them.
We really do. What is that skill or that creative project, or maybe even that difficult conversation you're putting off under the guise of getting ready?
Where are you hiding behind the excuse of gathering just a little more information?
Yeah. And that self-sustaining internal narrative, it's incredibly difficult to break out of alone.
Because the logic feels so sound to the person inside it, you tell yourself, I'm being responsible.
Right. It usually requires an outside perspective to shatter that illusion. Which brings us to the catalyst of our story, a friend named Chris.
Yes, Chris is the turning point here.
Chris enters the picture, and he notices something that Nadia has completely normalized. He sees that she's following all these complex conversations around her, but she never actually speaks.
She's just nodding along.
Yeah. So he asks her very simply, why don't you speak? And she admits she's waiting until her English is perfect.
And Chris just laughs softly, right?
He does. He laughs softly and drops the core philosophy of this entire text. He tells her, and this is a quote, if you wait for perfect, you will never speak. Speaking is how you learn, not the result of learning.
That phrase completely dismantles her entire operational framework.
Wait, so we've had the equation backward this whole time.
In many ways, yes.
I mean, we constantly tell ourselves we learn a skill so we can do it, but Chris is arguing we have to do it so we can learn it.
That's exactly what he's saying. He attacks the sequence she has been relying on.
Let me play devil's advocate here, though, just for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Let's really look at Chris's claim that speaking is how you learn. Because if I want to learn, say, quantum physics, I can't just walk up to a chalkboard and start doing quantum physics without reading a textbook first.
Fair point.
Right. Or if I try to speak a language with literally zero vocabulary, I'm just making random noises. There has to be some baseline of preparation. So where is the line between actual necessary preparation and just stalling?
Well, the line is drawn the moment you have the capacity to execute a basic function, however poorly.
However poorly, okay.
Right. Baseline preparation is learning the alphabet. It is learning, 10 basic verbs and a few nouns. You definitely need that initial scaffolding.
You can't build a house without bricks.
Exactly. But the source text makes it very clear that Nadia has been studying for a long time. She has far surpassed baseline preparation.
Oh, she's got plenty of bricks.
Tons of them. Stalling is memorizing your 500th vocabulary word because you are terrified of mispronouncing the first 10 you learned.
Ah, I see. So the stalling happens when the preparation is no longer about acquiring basic utility, but about building a shield.
A shield against potential embarrassment. Yes.
Wow.
Look at how traditional education models condition us to treat learning. We are taught entirely sequentially.
Right, like read the chapter, take the test.
Exactly. Study the textbook, sit quietly in the lecture hall, and then as the grand finale, perform the skill flawlessly on the final exam.
And if you don't, you get punished.
Right. Anything less than 100% is marked in red ink. We internalize this idea that an imperfect attempt is a total failure.
We become absolutely terrified of the red ink.
And as long as her focus is fixed on that monumental, flawless outcome, any sentence she speaks that falls short of perfect feels inherently dangerous.
So Chris is shifting Nadia from an outcome-focused framework to a process-focused framework.
He tells her explicitly, you don't need perfect English, you need practice.
He gives her a totally new set of instructions. He says, make mistakes, speak simply, start small.
He is actively commanding her to be imperfect. And by making the mistake the actual goal of the exercise, he removes the crushing pressure of the outcome.
He neutralizes the threat of the red ink.
Exactly.
The goal isn't to be flawless anymore. The goal is to be a little bit messy. Think about that to our listener. How would your physical tension change if you challenged yourself right now to change your goal for that project you're putting off?
It changes everything.
What if your goal for today wasn't doing it perfectly, but rather making at least one mistake today? Imagine how instantly that could lower the barrier to entry.
It lowers it significantly. But, establishing the theory is really only half the battle.
Right, for sure. Knowing it and doing it are two different things.
Right. The philosophy sounds liberating on paper, but the actual transition from passive waiting to active doing is usually where people freeze up all over again.
So how does Chris handle that?
Well, the source material details how Chris applies this in reality without completely overwhelming Nadia's nervous system.
Okay.
He gives her a highly specific challenge. He says, speak every day, even just one sentence.
One sentence, that is the assignment, just one.
Just one.
And the text details what Nadia does the very next day. She walks up to a colleague, and she delivers exactly one sentence, 5 words. Her voice is quiet, but she says, "Today is a busy day."
Here's where it gets really interesting if we look at the psychology of it.
Yeah, I want to dig into the mundanity of this, because Nadia has all these complex grammar rules stored in her head.
She could theoretically say so much more.
Right, but when it's time to act, she doesn't try to offer a witty, multi-layered joke. She doesn't spark a philosophical debate. She states the most obvious, boring fact possible.
And that is actually her brilliance in this moment. What she is executing is a cognitive sneak attack.
A cognitive sneak attack. I love that.
It really is. It is a brilliant bypass of the brain's threat detection system. If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the evolutionary psychology behind performance anxiety.
Okay, let's go there.
The brain's amygdala perceives social humiliation as a literal threat to survival.
Like, sounding foolish in a foreign language in front of your peers triggers a survival instinct.
Exactly, because in our evolutionary past, tribal rejection meant isolation, and isolation meant death.
So the brain literally treats mispronouncing a word in the break room the same way it treats a saber-toothed tiger jumping out of the bushes.
Physiologically, the response is incredibly similar. Your adrenaline spikes, your heart rate increases, and your higher order thinking just shuts down.
Which is why her mind always goes blank.
Exactly. The brain is trying to redirect resources to muscle groups for a fight or flight response. You cannot logic your way out of that biochemical reaction by simply telling yourself to be brave.
Wow. Which is why the 5-word sentence is the secret weapon here.
It is. It is so small, so completely unthreatening, that it slips right under the amygdala's radar.
The ego doesn't bother to mount a defense mechanism against stating today is a busy day.
Exactly. It's essentially a form of clinical exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah.
Like for phobias.
Yes. You introduce the phobic stimulus, which in this case is speaking English out loud, at a dosage so microscopic that it fails to trigger the panic response.
Ah. The brain looks at those 5 words and says, well, I guess we can survive that.
And she does, and her colleague just smiles and agrees with her.
It is such a tiny interaction, but the text notes that for Nadia, something felt really different. She actually felt proud.
Because she survived the interaction. That positive reinforcement from the colleague creates an immediate, empowering feedback loop.
Which passive studying could never do.
Never. Passive studying can never provide that visceral emotional reward. She proved to her nervous system that she could speak, be understood, and not be rejected by the tribe.
That is amazing.
That establishes a brand new neural pathway based on active engagement rather than passive avoidance.
So, to our listener, what is your version of today is a busy day?
That's the real question.
Right. If you are trying to write a novel, your micro-commitment isn't writing a whole chapter. It might not even be writing a paragraph.
It's way smaller than that.
Maybe it's opening the document and typing one single sentence describing the weather outside your window.
Or if you're trying to start running, it's not committing to a 5K. It's putting your running shoes on and just standing on your front porch for 60 seconds.
What is the absolute smallest, most mundane 5-word micro step you could take today in whatever you are trying to master?
Because identifying that micro step initiates the momentum.
Yes, it gets the ball rolling.
But we also have to address what happens the day after.
Oh, right. Because it doesn't just suddenly become perfectly easy forever.
No, not at all. We have to transition from that initial exciting breakthrough to the reality of sustained progress. Taking one brave step does not instantly rewire a lifetime of habits.
And the story is incredibly realistic about this. It doesn't pretend that this one break room interaction was a magic wand.
Thankfully, no.
The text details her day-by-day progression. So the next day, she speaks 2 sentences. The day after that, 3. But crucially, the source explicitly notes that she still makes mistakes.
Yes, that is a huge point.
She still forgets words. She still feels shy. The friction is very much still there.
Because exposure therapy doesn't erase fear overnight. It expands your window of tolerance for that fear.
Oh, that's a great distinction. The discomfort didn't evaporate, but her capacity to operate while uncomfortable grew.
Exactly. Before, the mere feeling of shyness would have sent her running back to the safety of her grammar books.
But
Now she experiences the shyness. She forgets the word halfway through the sentence, but she pushes through to the end anyway. She learns to embrace the messy middle.
And that brings us to a vital lesson outlined in the text that says, mistakes are not failures. They are part of progress.
They're simply data points.
Data points, yes. The
Yeah.
text emphasizes that as days go by, her sentences become easier, her voice becomes stronger, and eventually she starts to actually enjoy speaking.
And then comes the real payoff.
Yes. One day, Nadia finds herself in a real sustained conversation. And the text makes sure to point out that her English in this conversation is not perfect.
It's not perfect at all, but it is natural. She laughs, she responds, she understands.
Which is everything.
What Nadia ultimately achieves here redefines the entire purpose of her journey. Because her ultimate reward was never the flawless linguistic perfection she originally sought.
What was it?
Her ultimate reward was connection. It was the functional ability to naturally engage and share a moment with another human being.
Which is the whole point of language to begin with.
Exactly.
It's a great reminder for all of us. The ultimate goal of learning, whether it's a language or a physical skill or a new software program, it isn't to become some flawless, error-free machine.
No, it's not.
The goal is to functionally engage with the world. It's to participate.
And we really have to ask ourselves, are we delaying our participation in life because we are obsessed with an imaginary standard of perfection?
That's a heavy question, but so necessary.
If we synthesize the overarching takeaways from the source material, they form a clear, really powerful mandate. You do not learn by waiting. You learn by doing.
You don't learn by waiting, you learn by doing.
Furthermore, confidence does not come before action. It is entirely generated by action.
It's the byproduct of surviving the attempt.
Exactly. Nadia realized she didn't need perfect English. She just needed to start. The preparation phase has an expiration date, and past a certain point, it is just procrastination in a very nice suit.
Procrastination in a very nice suit. I love that. So what does this all mean for us?
Well, the final thoughts of this Easy English podcast episode drop a direct plea to the listener.
Yes, the text says, if you are waiting, stop. Start today. Start small.
Yeah.
One sentence is enough, because every time you speak or try or act, you get better.
It really is a call to completely abandon the illusion of readiness.
I want to leave you with a lingering thought to chew on today, long after this deep dive ends. Think back to that high dive board we talked about at the very beginning.
Standing up there in the cold.
Right. You are standing on the edge, looking down at the water, terrified, waiting to feel brave enough to jump.
Waiting for a feeling that will never arrive while you are standing still.
If confidence is strictly the result of taking action, and never ever the prerequisite, what entirely new world would open up for you if you fully accepted that you will never feel ready for the things that matter most?
It changes everything.
Start small, make a mistake today. We'll see you next time.